Hey, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Get to Know Us. This time it's with Hunting Dog. And we just released her album Pseudo Body on Friday, which is really exciting. It's a sister album to Body, which came out about 2 years ago. And we hope you'll check it out. And we're going to bring Hunting Dog on here to chat with her and get to know her a little bit better. And at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, after this, we are going to be having a listening party for our pseudo body over on our public Discord, which is called the Minnie Mouse Club. And the link to join our Discord is in the link tree in our bio. So we hope you'll join us there for a listening party and chat with Hunting Dog at 6 o'clock. Okay, let's see her.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, hi.
how are you doing?
Doing pretty great.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty great today.
Cool. You having a relaxing weekend?
Yeah, pretty sunny, pretty boring so far, but this will probably be the high point of my day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I tried to take it easy this weekend myself. But yeah, really excited about your release. It was just out on Friday. And yeah, and just excited to get more of Grimoken people and supporters to know who you are. And yeah, just wanted to ask you some questions. So yeah, like if you wanted to let everybody know maybe how you first got into music as a listener, and maybe like a song or album or kinds of music that you first started getting into, or first album that you bought or anything like that.
Um, I guess like I started off listening to whatever my parents were listening to, which was mostly like 90s hip hop and things like that, and 90s R&B. So that's like where my brain starts with music, like bassline, but also like soul and reggae and even like drum and bass and stuff like that. So just like black foundational music, basically.
Yeah,
Um, as like a more like a independent listener, I guess like when you hit your teens or whatever, I got more interested in stuff like industrial music and electronic music and things like that. Just to me, like it just sprang up naturally from like hip hop and like black music at the time. Just everything
yeah,
was electronic to me in the 2000s. So everything was also industrial. So pretty much that way. Getting into like 2000s industrial, then 2010s industrial, which I guess is very different, and now 2020s industrial. So just that way,
yeah,
and
cool.
post-industrial, I guess you want to say.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I also forgot to mention in my intro that you're also a DJ. So anyway, I sorry
Oh
about
yeah, that too.
that. Yes, like actually, I would love to know, like, when did you start DJing, and also when did you start writing and recording music, and like how did those two things kind of, because they blend together a little bit, I feel like, with you, what you doing, what you do creatively. So
Um, I guess I started making music around like 2000, probably 17, like late 17, really. Um,
wow, I didn't
all
realize
my
it was that
friends.
new for you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just have been like a very avid listener.
Yeah,
So I've
that's cool.
DJed for myself and stuff, and like messed around with like software here and there just for like the fun of it, but like never like really recording anything or making anything like that. And then one day I was just like, I'm bored. Why not like put some of my other ideas into like musical form since I spend so much time listening to music.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really cool. And the DJing, like, I guess that all happened around the same time, or
Um, Yeah, about the same time, like it's interchangeable for me, like mixing my own music and mixing synths and everything and doing it live. I don't know. I don't see why not to throw samples in there and things.
Yeah. So the first time I heard your music, I was at a live show in Richmond, and I was just completely mesmerized and blown away. And I think you were doing tracks. Some of the stuff you were doing live was some of what ended up kind of being what Body was, I think. I think so. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I've said it, not to embarrass you, but I've said it many times that that album is like one of my all-time favorite albums, like of all time, of
Thank
anybody,
you.
of anybody, yeah. And so like, yeah, it's just really something. If you haven't listened to it, please check out Body. And then Sasudo Body, which we just put out on Friday, right? So that's like a sister album to Body. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about Pseudo Body and also Body, if you want to, whatever you want to tell us about those albums.
Well, I guess they're like really weird albums. The way I decided to start making their music was kind of weird because I think first and foremost, I define myself as like, by what I'm doing, and I guess that makes me, interested in like witchcraft and occultism and things like that. I just thought that music was the easiest way to like, further those interests and like to like understand those kinds of things. Um, and I guess like, body kind of came out of that, like, trying to like just like see like, oh, like how much like, can you really do with like, trances and stuff when you're just like making your own weird music and whatever. And, doing that like live and like kind of having that like react to people live and being like, okay, let's have like some reactive music. So it's kind of like they both kind of like came up by being like experimented with live. So they're both like the result of like I guess like live improvisation and then being like, oh, that sounded good and people reacted to that good. So they're kind of like made with the people who's like around. So it's a they're all they're I don't know. I feel like they kind of sound like being at like one of my shows or whatever because I make the music the same way that I record it. So I think,
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, that's
So
it's really cool. Um and then the way you like incorporate like poetry or you know, there's not a lot of vocals and stuff or whatnot, but I wondered if you wanted to talk about that a little bit and just also like your influences and that kind of thing.
um yeah, the way I added vocals onto Body was really funny because I had just been like reading a lot of like weird audiobooks at the time and or listening to a lot of weird audiobooks at the time. And I thought it was like really interesting like how you could, create like basically audiobooks for with essentially text to speech. And they sounded pretty okay now. And I imagine like, now they sound even like better than like whatever was going on like 2010s. Um, but I just thought I was like mesmerized by that idea because it was like much less than like manpower, and I loved listening to them. And then when I would show my friends them, people would be like, "This is terrible. This is like the worst sounding thing ever," because it's like they can hear like the automation in the voice, so they're like, it's like too
Oh,
weird to listen to a robot or whatever. And I like the idea of that, and I don't know. So I just like kind of like added that on and like was like, this is what I like listening to, and I don't know. Just like with music, I could like, add it in there. Like I just don't see any difference between it because it's sound and we're all doing weird sound experimentation, I guess. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. And I know, yeah,
That's what I'm hearing all day.
yeah, well, I really want to talk about your influences and like I know you told me about Ruth White and I just listened to the album that the Flowers of Evil album. I think I got that name right. Um just over the weekend and whatnot and it's really wild and it's wild to me that that was put out in 1969. It's very experimental kind of I don't know, and I can see some I can see a little bit of influence for sure when you know that you mentioned her um
Hmm.
in that album. And yeah, yeah, it's just yeah, it's really something else. So I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk about her or also any other of your many influences.
Um, I guess I think I'd like to less talk about her. I do love that album.
Okay.
But more so like her as like, and like I said, like not I wouldn't call her an occultist, but like, all of her albums are like, rooted in kind of like transposing different occult theories into music. Like she has another album that's about like, the tarot trumps. And the album Flowers of Evil is a lot of the vocals and things are poems by I might ruin this guy's name, Charles Baudelaire. I'm not gonna say that
I'm not
right.
sure if I
You know, Baudelaire, but
yeah.
people know I mean. The poet, and a lot of his things, in recent times have been like counted as like more occult or esoteric or mystical. And I think for me, I think that the sonics of it are just like a consequence of people being into those kinds of same things. Like, I think it would make sense, like even back in the '60s, for people interested in like weird industrial music or like the fringes of like electronic music to be like interested in like those things. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's the thing that kind of like connects because there's like a lot of like I feel like there is music that sounds like that in the '60s and things, but it's not like the same like uh it's not as weird, there's not
Yeah.
like so many there's a few like weird people who are consistently like doing things. And I feel like that's what kind of drew me to her, it being very weird and very dark for
Yes,
that time.
very, very weird and very dark. Yes, definitely. And
Fun
um,
stuff.
yeah, and I also was I looked her up obviously then because I was curious about her more, and I was also really pleasantly surprised to hear that that album in particular was like she did that in her mid 40s, which is also really cool and wild to me. So I'm like, yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, I always like that too. I like a lot of when it does come to like what I'm listening to, I do think I tend more to like trying to listen to, women in the electronic or industrial scenes. And I I really do hate how like today like everyone has to be like young to make music and stuff because it's so hard. Like it's so hard to just be like, oh, I'm 20 something, I'm gonna make like 5 albums. Like no, just it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah,
some of my favorite artists like release things when they were like 50, 60, 70.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's I think it's just like a music industry standard that after your 20s, like unless you're already an established artist from your 20s, they just know the they don't give a shit about you what you have to say or offer, which is yeah, I could
But
talk more about that, but won't. But yeah, but yeah,
yeah,
any of your other influences that you wanted to discuss or
um I guess there's, like since like Body and Pseudo Body both I guess, they have a lot of little bits of poetry in there. And like, live shows are like a lot more interspersed with like poetry being mixed into like, the kind of like, DJ apparatuses or whatever. Um I guess I would say like Sarah Kane, English playwright. She's pretty great. Very depressing, very sad. People love to hear it. It's like goth music in theater form. Um, very, very terrible. And I guess just like all of like post-industrial music, like coming from like the post like Throbbing Gristle period to '80s, '90s. Like, there's like a period before like, rave culture that's really like a thing where there's acid house and there's whatever Psychic TV and Coil are, and there's also Depeche Mode and this and that. And then there's like the period for me where I think, horrorcore and techno and dance music become like more of a focus towards that kind of counterculture and even industrial music, So
yeah.
I guess just that stuff, just like industrial music, really, like the whole of it, and like black people's part in it,
Yeah.
really is what influenced me and got me. I was just wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, 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 very cool. Yeah, and is there anything that you wanted to talk about that you're listening to right now, or is it just
Hmm.
you? Yeah,
God, I'm listening to Terminus by James Ferraro, and it's I don't want to call it a soundtrack to Terminator, but it's kind of like a soundtrack to Skynet, and it's pretty good.
I'll have to
Kind of
check
like
that
if
out.
you're ever like if EBM and like neoclassical music had like a kid or something, and but it was like equal parts, both of them. It's pretty great. Um, Listening to a lot of the old Metalheads albums, like Old Goldie and Chemistry and Storm and stuff like that, like the old like British albums. I'm always listening to that, and now sadly listening to a lot of Lee Perry because Lee Perry passed, and
Yeah.
that's also a big influence. So
Yeah.
listen to that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know you've talked about your like dub reggae and reggae in general and being an influence for you. Um, yeah, I don't know if you wanted to talk any more about that. It's okay if you don't want to. Just-
I'd be down to like it's I feel like it's pretty like influential and something that like all DJs or like sound workers or whatever like should really like look into. I feel like a lot of people like completely like skip over like sound system culture when it comes to like producing music and being interested in music, and it's kind of like a thing that is really to the detriment of music because like people you end up like doing things that have already been done in like a worse way and not even knowing that like you're doing it because you just don't know what you're even being influenced by. Like to me, like none of the things that I or anyone in essentially like electronic music would be able to be done without sound system culture and dub culture and reggae, and how that worked out. There wouldn't be jungle or drum and bass or even like industrial music the way that it is. So for me, like I can't really like make like big atmospheric music without like linking it to dub. So
yeah.
that's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
People should listen to dub.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I guess I wanted to talk to you a little bit about mutual aid. As you know, it's obviously important the work we do, and I know um, digital and tape proceeds for Body had gone to Food Clothing Resistance Collective, and tape proceeds for Pseudo Body are going to them as well. And I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk a little bit about your involvement with with them and or whatever it is that you want to say in regards to that.
I guess just that like, my personal philosophy has always just been that like artists and musicians and like, anywhere can always like, kind of be helping in the community as well. If you're going to have people like kind of like corralling around you and you're going to have people listening to you, that gives you a chance to do at least like something in the community where like previously like you might not have had that much of an impact. um like it seems like nothing or whatever, but like now you have like that much more of like a level to be like, hey, you guys should give out diapers or you guys should distribute water and things. And I think that really does like get like forgotten when people are like doing anything. It's never, oh boy, like like people are looking at me so I can you know say something that like we all need to hear. It's usually like people are looking at me so I can do something that will make more people look at me, and that's not to me as efficient. um so I've always just been interested in mutual aid and that whole thing, and just feel like a no-brainer to connect it with music.
Yeah, for sure. And I know um, that the Food Clothing Resistance Collective they're based in Baltimore right now, right? But they do work throughout the DMV, I believe.
Hmm. They do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I love them. Love any good like collective that's doing mutual aid.
yeah. They're really important organizations. I hope everybody will check them out. I believe they are at Maroon Movement, I think, here on Instagram. I may have,
Hmm.
I think I got that right. So
Please.
yeah, please definitely, I can, let me see if I can type that in there. See me while I do this. I think, I think I got it. I think I put it in there. So everybody should give them a follow and support them if you can. Um, yeah, yeah, I guess is there any other mutual aid or like activities or collectives that you want to shout out to, either in Richmond or in the DMV or wherever, really?
Um, Less so. Like I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I do think people should just get interested in general with like the concept of mutual aid. I don't think that like most people, really are. Like you can say, like we all like, there's so many people like, out here like whose like entire like living is, towards, advocating for like mutual aid, doing mutual aid, like and doing this, but I think more so it's like, people need to like go look up what mutual aid is and like see if you can get like involved in like your community helping people and being
Yes.
helped by people and like, doing that. I think, I think like Richmond is like absolutely full of them. Virginia is absolutely full of them. DMV area absolutely full of them.
Yeah.
Um, and they don't have enough
I
support. There is
I agree.
VAVP.
Yes. Virginia Anti-Violence
There's
Project is
them.
also awesome. You should definitely follow them as
They're
well.
pretty
They're
great.
VAVP, and then I forget. I think it's Project. I think that's their handle on here. Um, but yeah, I'll put it in there then later. Um, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I guess I wanted to, well, okay, so we talked a little bit about um the music industry. There's a lot of things to criticize about it, obviously. Grimalkin, we're trying to make some small amount of changes, at least in terms of helping our local community and like other communities that we are, collaborate with outside of like, Richmond and whatnot. But I'm always curious to hear what other people think in terms of like, there's so many things that could be changed, should be changed within the music industry. But I like to hear what other people think if they could pick one thing um, that to change one thing.
Oh
What do you think
God, I think
it would be?
I think I would just want everyone to leave. Everyone to leave the music industry and give their music for free, and stop asking for money for it and stop asking for attention for it. I think like, the music industry as a whole is like people buying into the idea that there should be industry behind music and that we have to be included in industry and doing things like that. And I never want to be a part of any industry, essentially. Like I don't consider myself a part of the music industry. I
Yeah,
don't think I ever will. I don't consider myself a part of anything like that.
yeah,
I think people should like continue doing music for fun. I think people should do music for like spiritual purposes. I think people should do music because it makes them happy. But I
yeah,
think like everything that we do now is like, kind of regulated into capitalism. So it's like, like it's, like we should be paid for our time, yes, but geez, it sucks,
yeah. I hear
you
you, and
know.
I feel like for me, I started making music before the internet, and I do feel like the internet, in some ways, it's such a great thing because you can reach anybody, and you can put your music like, so when it first came around, and I was putting my music on MySpace, it was really exciting to just be able to put it so that somebody else besides like me and my mom and like a couple friends heard. But like when I started making it, that wasn't even a thought in my mind, wasn't even like who that anyone would hear it. I wasn't doing it for other people. I was doing it for myself. And I wonder, I don't know, I wonder if the internet also is kind of like, although it's helped in so many ways, sometimes I wonder if it's social media and the internet has kind of hurt a lot of people's creativity too in some ways, thinking that, they've got to make this product and they've got to, I don't know. What do you think about that? I just
um I think that people definitely now like, think that they have to like commodify themselves in a certain way. Like I think that like, people like definitely can feel that it's almost like a competitive market to be a musician or to be an artist or to be something like that. And I think that people feel that like, there's a hierarchical moving up of like being a musician, of being like an artist and things like that. And
yeah.
like I feel like that's a consequence of anyone being in a big room. I feel like if you put enough humans in a room, they'll just find some way to compete to like make some kind of a hierarchy. And I think that that's just something that like, like musicians should encourage each other to not fall into. Like, you should
Yeah.
have people making more like projects of love or whatever instead of just like, doing things that I'm like, oh man, this is going to like make me a buck. Or this is going to make me like very famous, or this,
Yeah.
collaboration will be like the most like advantageous for me, and it doesn't matter, in the long run, it does not matter.
Yeah. I feel like
Um,
all that stuff kind of gets in the way of people's creativity actually, and it makes it
it gets
less.
in the way of like cool albums being made, it gets in the way of like people having a good time and like, like the cool collaborations being made, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah. I do think it's really exciting about Grimalkin is that there is a lot of collaboration that's going on, and it there isn't really like competitive. There's not this competitive like spirit at all. It's I feel like people are just want to just naturally are collaborating and helping each other, and then there's a lot of crossover with either like appearing on other people's albums or maybe helping with mixing or mastering or whatever, and that's cool. And I know I always say how I feel that music can be like a bridge for positive change, like a vehicle for it, a way to kind of like motivate people to get more excited about being maybe involved in mutual aid or whatever, getting more involved in their community or helping other people. Um, and I was curious if you could like maybe share like your views on that and just sort of like if you had words of advice as a musician to other musicians or even just like words of wisdom or hopes for the future or whatever it is that you want to that you would like to share in parting.
hmm. um geez, what do I have to say about that? I guess that you can do things with your music. I'm not so keen on telling people what to do with anything. But I think that like people should know that they can do something with something, or like that gives like a more like interesting playing field. And I feel like a lot of times people, they just don't know that you can like do this with your music, or that you can like use your music for like other purposes or whatever. Like sometimes like it's just music for the sake of music, and that's like fine and all. But like when you have other things that you're interested in, other pursuits, like via I don't know, like mutual aid, be it like film, be it like music or whatever, like you can connect those things to it and like use them to like just branch off. So I guess
Yeah.
um that you can do a lot. I don't know. That it doesn't matter like who you are, like like you start making some content and you start connecting things to it and that is like a work. It will flourish by its own right if it's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully like, it goes through the right channels and everything, but just be like, inspired to actually like keep doing it,
Yeah.
and actually seeing where it goes. Like that initial spark of like, I want to do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
keep
Not
that,
worrying about if it's good or bad or just
because
doing.
then you'll never make anything.
Yeah, I think that does happen to a lot of people. They feel like, oh, I'm not
Yeah.
talented enough. I'm not
So
good
maybe you
enough.
aren't. Make a couple albums. Maybe do a little practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do it and see what happens and not worry about it. Yeah. I think more people should do that for sure. Um, well, I really appreciate you coming on to talk and introduce yourself to everybody. And I'm excited about the listening party tonight. So that's at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time after this. It's on our public Discord, which is called the Minnie Mouse Club. I just get a kick out of that name, but it wasn't my idea. And anyway, yeah, hopefully people will join us then, and you'll be able to like ask Hunting Dog any questions, and we're gonna have a little chat thing going. Probably like play a couple songs, do a little chat, see what happens. Should be fun. And the link to join our Discord is in the link tree in our bio, and there's a bunch of posts on it too on our page that you can see. But yeah, and thank you so much, Hunting Dog. I'll see you in a little bit.
See you later.
Okay, all right, bye. Bye, everybody.